Civilizations rarely collapse because they lack resources. They collapse because they lack restraint. Long before modern banking systems, long before central reserves and regulatory agencies, the Hebrew Bible outlined an economic framework designed not merely to generate prosperity, but to stabilize it. It was not speculative. It was not abstract. It was agricultural, cyclical, and deeply disciplined. And yet, it is largely ignored. The biblical economic system was not built on constant expansion. It was built on rhythm, production and pause, ownership and release, accumulation and redistribution. It appears most clearly in the intertwined laws of Sabbath, sabbatical year, and Jubilee, embedded within Leviticus and reinforced in Deuteronomy. Taken together, they form an economic architecture unlike any modern model. This is an investigation into that system, not as nostalgia, not as utopian ideal, but as structure. 1. The weekly interruption. The foundation begins with the Sabbath, 6 days of labor, 1 day of cessation. On the surface, this appears spiritual, a day of rest, reflection, sanctity. But its economic implications are profound. In agrarian societies, productivity was survival. To cease labor voluntarily, every 7th day required discipline. It introduced a ceiling on extraction. The Sabbath creates a recurring interruption in economic momentum. Why would a society impose limits on its own productivity? Because unchecked production alters psychology. It breeds the illusion that growth must be constant. It erodes boundaries. The Sabbath trains restraint. It asserts that human value is not identical with output. Economically, it reduces burnout. Socially, it equalizes. Masters and servants cease together. Hierarchy pauses. This weekly interruption builds long-term sustainability. It is the first layer of the system, structured limitation. 2. The 7th year reset. The system deepens with the sabbatical year, described in Leviticus 25. Every 7th year, the land was to rest. Fields were not planted. Vineyards were not pruned. In addition, debts were released, as outlined in Deuteronomy 15. At first glance, this appears economically destabilizing. Why halt production? Why forgive debts? The text is precise. The land is not to be exploited indefinitely. Debtors are not to remain permanently bound. The system introduces periodic reset. Modern economies rarely incorporate reset mechanisms. Debt compounds, inequality hardens, a resource extraction intensifies. The sabbatical year interrupts these trajectories. It prevents exhaustion of soil. It prevents permanent debt servitude. It prevents irreversible stratification. The principle is simple. Sustainability requires pause. 3. The Jubilee redistribution. After 7 cycles of 7 years, 49 years, a 50th year was declared the Jubilee. Land returned to original families. This is not symbolic. It is structural. In ancient Israel, land represented primary economic capital. Returning it prevented permanent concentration. Families that had fallen into hardship and sold land regained it. The reset extended beyond debt into asset ownership. This mechanism restricted generational dispossession. The Jubilee does not eliminate inequality entirely. It limits its permanence. Modern systems often debate redistribution as ideology. The biblical model embeds redistribution into calendar. It is neither impulsive nor reactionary. It is scheduled. Predictability stabilizes expectations. 4. The economic logic, taken together, Sabbath, sabbatical, and Jubilee, create a layered system. Weekly pause, 7-year reset, 50-year structural redistribution. This design addresses 3 economic risks: overproduction, debt entrapment, Asset concentration. Overproduction exhausts resources. Debt entrapment destabilizes families. Asset concentration fractures society. The biblical system does not pursue maximum expansion. It pursues equilibrium. Equilibrium sustains longevity. 5. Psychological restraint. Economics is not only numbers, it is behavior. The Sabbath disciplines desire for constant gain, and the sabbatical disciplines fear of scarcity. The Jubilee disciplines greed for permanent dominance. By embedding these disciplines in time, the system removes reliance on individual virtue alone. Restraint becomes communal norm. When restraint is institutionalized, volatility decreases. Volatility destroys continuity. 6. Misunderstanding the system. Many modern readers interpret these laws as archaic or impractical. Some see them as purely theological, detached from economics. Others see them as unrealistic idealism. But the system is not utopian. It acknowledges profit, ownership, and trade. It regulates them. It allows wealth. It prevents absolutism. The biblical economic system assumes inequality will arise. It does not deny this reality. Instead, it limits its permanence. And most contemporary systems lack built-in expiration dates for economic dominance. The Jubilee imposes 1. 7. The role of stewardship. Underlying the entire framework is a statement repeated in Leviticus. The land is mine. Human ownership is provisional. This concept reframes property rights. Ownership is real, but not ultimate. Stewardship replaces entitlement. When individuals see assets as entrusted rather than absolute, behavior changes. Extraction slows. Preservation increases. Stewardship fosters generational continuity. 8. Community stability. The biblical system recognizes that economic collapse of the poor destabilizes the entire society. Debt release protects the debtor. It also protects the creditor from inheriting a resentful underclass. Reset reduces rebellion. This is pragmatic, and societies endure when disparities are moderated periodically. The sabbatical year and Jubilee serve as pressure valves. Pressure without release leads to rupture. 9. The quiet radicalism. The radical aspect of the biblical economic system lies not in redistribution alone, but in predictability. Reset is scheduled. Because it is known in advance, participants adjust behavior accordingly. Land prices reflect years remaining until Jubilee. Debt contracts anticipate release. This predictability prevents panic. Modern markets often respond to crisis with sudden policy shifts. The biblical model embeds adjustment into calendar. Adjustment becomes expectation. Expectation reduces shock. X. Application to human capital. The sabbatical rest of land has parallel in human rest. Burnout diminishes productivity. Soil depletion reduces yield. Both require recovery. Modern systems often pursue continuous optimization. The biblical system accepts cyclical reduction for long-term gain. Rest is not loss. It is investment. 11. Why it is ignored. The biblical economic system is often overlooked because it does not promise rapid expansion. It restrains. Restraint is unattractive in growth-obsessed cultures. Yet, across history, societies that ignored limits exhausted themselves. The biblical model does not eliminate ambition, it frames it within boundaries. Boundaries preserve continuity. 12. Subtle historical echoes. Throughout Jewish history, even when full implementation of Jubilee was impractical due to exile, the mindset of periodic recalibration persisted. Charitable funds were structured. Debt mechanisms were moderated. And community courts intervened to prevent exploitation. The spirit of reset survived even when geography shifted. Structure endured. 13. The calm conclusion. The biblical economic system most people ignore is not a hidden secret. It is written plainly. Weekly rest, periodic debt release, scheduled asset reset. It assumes human desire for expansion. It tempers it with rhythm. It acknowledges inequality. It prevents its permanence. It permits wealth. It restrains absolutism. Its purpose is not maximum growth. Its purpose is sustainable continuity. Civilizations rarely collapse because they lack resources. They collapse because they lack restraint. The Hebrew Bible anticipated this, and within its quiet calendar of pauses and resets lies an economic system designed not for spectacle, but for endurance, year after year, cycle after cycle, balanced, deliberate, and remarkably resilient.